Well, I would say I like to tell people that I was in a non-monogamous relationship before I knew what non-monogamy was.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 149.
Take two.
It's a Monday.
It is a Monday. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy bonus episode.
Monday.
Today we have an interview with Wilson. He's in his late 20s and has been exploring polyamory and non-monogamy for quite a while.
But he didn't really know that it was a thing.
Right.
So he was in a long-distance relationship with a woman in Argentina, and they were like, well, we're going to do this open relationship thing, and they just kind of made it up as they went along.
Kind of jumped right into it.
And so it's a great story about sort of how that relationship led him to start exploring it and researching it and figuring it out. And now he's sort of hitting the road looking to figure out what solo poly and what his dynamic's going to look like.
Yeah.
And it's super exciting, and we're really happy he reached out.
Yes. Before we jump into the interview, we do have a couple of quick announcements. Our first is updates on our community. So
we're going to keep these really short this week, and we're going to put most of the information in the outro. So basically just some dates for you to remember.
Yeah, our next virtual meet and greet is this coming Friday. That is October 16th, and it's going to be from 10 to 12 a.m. Eastern time. 10
p.m. to 12 a.m.
Yes.
So 10 to midnight Eastern.
Yes.
We were going to keep it short, but now we had to go long.
You interrupted me.
Well, I thought it was going to be from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m.
No, I think it's pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear. Anyway. It's
open to everybody, and it's $10, and all of the details will be in the outro. So we will stop there. And now... what? Patreon? A couple of things about Patreon.
Yes. So we're also building a community on Patreon, and our next women's group call is this Wednesday, October 14th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then also we have our next Q&A, which will be on October 28th. That's a Wednesday. We do two of them, one at 9 p.m. Eastern and another at 9 p.m. Pacific.
And if you want to learn more about what all of the Patreon perks and what all is going on, just stick around to the outro or head over to our website and click on the Patreon tab.
And just a really quick thank you so much for all of you who support us. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, and for making the community amazing. We're upwards of 110 people in the community now, and it's awesome. So thank you all for the support, and we love it, and we're excited every month to do the Q&As and everything. So a huge thank you to our sponsor for today's episode, Alt Playground. Oh, nailed that. Same times. High five. You want to talk about it?
Well, I thought you were going to roll with it.
No, that's a handoff.
So if you haven't heard of Alt Playground, it is an online dating website mostly for non-monogamous people. I shouldn't say mostly. It is for non-monogamous people.
Well, there might be a couple who slipped in.
True. But it is a great way to meet diverse and inclusive community.
Yeah, and they have just rolled out a new feature where if you're looking to try it out, you can try it out for 3 days for $3.99. So you might be thinking, well, that's kind of silly. But their big thing is not giving away free trials because they're really trying to keep the riffraff out.
The bots and trolls.
And people who aren't actually using the site. So 3 days, $3.99, you can get in and see everything that they have to offer, all the stuff we've been talking about.
And then decide if it's a long-term solution or something that you want to try out for a longer term.
Yeah, so if you want to check that out, head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. There are links to sign up on the homepage. There are also links to sign up under our resources page, or you can go straight to altplayground.net and sign up for 3 days for $3.99 on your own.
Yes. And one last thing before we jump into this show, you know that the U.S. is opening up a little bit more, and you might be looking to go meet people in person. And one thing we would recommend is to know your STI status and be able to have those conversations in person or before you meet people and So you'll have all the conversations out there in the open.
Yeah, and the way that we do this is we use a website called stdcheck.com. We've talked about it a ton in the past, but we use it ourselves and we love it. And it is affordable, it's easy, it's discreet. You don't have to have uncomfortable conversations with your doctor.
Which is a huge bonus.
Yeah, not that we've ever had those. But if you use the links, it does support the show and we really appreciate it. So head over to our website again, normalizingnonmonogamy.com
and click on the resources tab.
Yeah, and there's links in there. There's also links in the show notes of your podcast player. And while you're over at our website, by the way, maybe you should reach out to us, say hello.
You can contact us by clicking on the contact tab. And there's show notes of all of our guests by clicking on the podcast tab.
So we look forward to hearing from you, and we will talk more at you in the outro. But let's go listen to Wilson.
Let's go.
Welcome. Wilson.
That's a warm welcome.
That is. That's a triple welcome. Welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. We don't know too much about you, as we do not with most guests. So do you mind introducing us and the listeners to who is Wilson?
All right, well, I am Wilson. I am in my late 20s. I live in West Michigan. And currently I am single. I'm just previously out of a couple relationships. I do identify as polyamorous. Not really identifying as solo poly right now. I'm not really quite sure, but I just kind of use the term polyamorous in general to describe the way I kind of structure my life and my relationships.
Yeah. I mean, hey, labels are what you make them, right? So
for sure,
you call yourself whatever you want to be. Well, we support you.
And define that term however you want to define it.
For sure. And I think we'll probably get to know more about what that means. So you're in your late 20s. When did you learn about non-monogamy, or has it always been something that you've practiced, known about?
Well, I would say I like to tell people that I was in a non-monogamous relationship before I knew what non-monogamy was.
Okay.
Yeah. When I discovered what polyamory and non-monogamy in general was in college, specifically in 2013, I remember that because I still remember vividly the moment really that I found out. But I had already been in a non-monogamous relationship at that point for, actually, it hadn't been that long, but about a year-ish, few months.
Yeah, that's still pretty decent.
Yeah. So it was, actually, I said that wrong. My relationship started in 2013, and I didn't discover polyamory and that word, that term, until about 2015. So I had been in that relationship for about 2 years when I discovered that. And I remember specifically I found out about it because anybody who knows me knows that I have a weird fascination with flags. And I was looking at different like pride flags. It was June, actually. I was looking at different pride flags for Pride Month or whatever. And I saw one that I didn't recognize, and it was the poly flag. So I looked at it and I said, okay, what's this? And then I discovered polyamory through that. And I remember just reading all about it, like, oh, what is that? Because I kind of sort of gathered what it was from the root word, And then as I read more, it was just one of those revealing moments where I was just like, wow, this is me. This is what I've been doing more or less for 2 years. And this is kind of always how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what did it actually look like for you? Like how were you not aware you were in a non-monogamous relationship?
Well, I grew up in a small town, so there wasn't a ton of diversity as far as, relationship orientation or, anything as far as diversity goes in general. So monogamy was just, it wasn't even really a thing in my mind, monogamy as compared to non-monogamy or polyamory or anything else. It was just how things were.
Right.
So I had always kind of thought that I was just weird. I'm sure everybody says that. They always thought, oh, I was just weird because, in high school and even younger than that, I always had multiple crushes at the same time and things like that. But I always kind of justified it in my own mind. Like, well, it's because I'm young, it's because I'm however old and, they're not quote unquote serious or things like that. But that didn't change as I got to be an adult, a young adult, into college even. That didn't change. I still had those feelings. And actually, that relationship that I mentioned was a long distance relationship. So with the nature of that, it was very long distance, actually. She lived in Argentina.
Oh, yeah. So that's pretty far.
Yeah, it's a long ways. It's a long ways. It's funny when I hear some of my friends talk about, dating somebody. Oh, my boyfriend lives, 3 hours away. It's so hard. I just look at him like, yeah. 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 Try a few thousand miles, but not to degrade anything like that. Those are long distance relationships are still hard, regardless of how far it is.
Right.
But, so we kind of worked things out from the beginning there, considering we couldn't see each other in person. I mean, we talked all day, every day. We had, on messaging apps, and we would Skype call at night and things like that. But we couldn't see each other in person and really do that sort of thing. So we kind of worked it out to what I know now is referred to as an open relationship. I didn't really know what it was then. I think we did use the term open relationship, but it was we kind of saw it as this just like custom thing that we're doing to kind of make up for the long distance.
So what did the agreement look like? What, I guess, did you set up rules and boundaries around what each of you were allowed to do? And like, what did those look like? Yes,
we did. There were a lot of rules actually, because she, as far as I knew, I was monogamous. Little did I know. but she was also monogamous. She still is, as far as I know. We're no longer together, just for the record. But we set up a lot of rules, actually. It was a don't ask, don't tell situation, which I wouldn't do again personally. For me, I know it works for some people, but after having done that, it didn't exactly work out for me personally. So I wouldn't do it again, but that's what we were doing for the entirety of the relationship. It lasted about 5 years. There was a couple breaks in there, but it was about a 5-year relationship. Don't ask, don't tell, long distance relationship. And it was, the agreement that we had was, it was, open sexually for sure. And then as far as romantic relationship goes, if something like that were to develop, we agreed that we would tell the other person. When it got to the point where we knew it was going to be serious, we would tell the other person and have the discussion then. So it never did really until the end, sort of. Mm-hmm. It was, right. It's kind of complicated, obviously, but that was really what it was. It was just, I don't care what you do, and just don't tell me about it, from both ends for us, right. Which was very new to me. I had never heard of any of this happening.
What, I guess with regards to the don't ask, don't tell, were there rules within that? You just said within that you could anything, but if there was feelings, we had to talk about them. But you also said there was a lot of rules. So I guess maybe trying to understand how you came to this conclusion that this was a thing, or was it just intuitive? Well, we can't see each other, so I don't know, go do what you want to do.
That's actually, it really was intuitive. It was a situation where we were talking about how are we going to make this work. Neither of us really obviously knew anything about non-monogamy, so we didn't have any sort of structure to go off of. So it really was just an intuitive thing. What could we do? And we both kind of agreed, we're human beings. We have needs. We have connection needs. We have, all other sorts of needs too. So it was more of this will have to do for the time being sort of situation. But we also agreed, and I didn't mention this, we also agreed that because at the time she had plans on moving to the US, not right away, but eventually moving to the US.
Okay. That makes sense.
So our plan was, when she got back here to the US, that we would be closed again, like a quote unquote normal monogamous relationship,
Yeah. This was a hold us over until we can be together.
Exactly.
Forever kind of thing.
Yes, okay. Exactly. That's what it was. And then in college, when I made that discovery, when I discovered what non-monogamy and polyamory really was, and I started reading about it, I thought, wow, like, holy shit, this exactly describes the feelings I've always had and the situation I've always had kind of, in my own head and then with my relationships and things. Because I remember even being a kid and being like in middle school and high school, it's like several of your other guests have said, like, I didn't have those feelings of jealousy. And like, if somebody that I liked somebody else, it didn't, obviously it was, hard because they didn't like me, but it wasn't like I didn't have that jealousy issue.
Right.
And even with my friends, like, not just people that I had feelings for, but even just my friends, like, I was never the type of person that, oh, like, why are you hanging out with him? You should be hanging out with me, sort of thing. I never felt that. And I never really understood why people felt that, because it just seemed so illogical to me.
Right. So did you, just like were you non-monogamous in theory, or did either or both of you like act on it and like road test the strategy you built out?
We both did. It was don't ask, don't tell. So I don't know really a lot of the details on her side,
right.
But I do know she had other partners at the time. I don't think romantically. If she did, she didn't tell me about it, which was against the rules. So, but I didn't have any romantically. I had other sexual partners. I was in college and I was kind of, doing that thing, the hoe phase, quote unquote, in college.
Having fun.
So, yeah, I was doing that safely. Obviously, I've always been big on safety, asking the right questions before things happen, condoms, the whole bit. So yeah, we were acting on it in that aspect. And then as far as romantically goes, that kind of starts the next sort of chapter in my story
before you jump into that, I just have a really quick question. So like you said, you never really had jealous feelings like as a kid and growing up. So even throughout that whole don't ask, don't tell phase, did you have any, or did she express any, did either one of you express any jealousy feelings, or was it just like, this is what we're going to do to stay together and it's all good?
I didn't ever feel jealous. I didn't ever feel any jealousy. She sort of did. When she would, because it was the don't ask, don't tell. So when I'm with somebody, we talked all the time. We talked pretty much constantly. I mean, unless I was in class or working or something where I couldn't be on my phone, we were talking. So if she knew that I wasn't in class and I wasn't on my phone and I wasn't at work and I wasn't answering her, I think she kind of put two and two together that I was either with somebody, but I had, my friends from college, so I could be doing something else. But even when I was with friends, I would usually text her. But if I was with somebody else, I didn't. So I think she kind of figured that out a couple times because I would get some of those jealous vibes from her.
Yeah.
That it wasn't ever explicit. She never really got mad at me or anything, or it never caused really issues with us. But I definitely got those jealousy kind of vibes from her.
Yeah. Right.
Sometimes when she would figure that out.
Yeah.
Oh, and definitely let's jump to the, like you said, sort of the next chapter. But I have one like yes, no question is, did you ever meet her in person?
No.
No?
There were a couple times. It's kind of sad when I think back on it because like I said, we were together for 5 years, but there were 2 breaks in there. And she actually came back to the US during one of those breaks.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that was kind of hard when I found out when we had gotten back together after that, but no, I've actually never met her in person. It was virtual. It was very 2020 for being 2015.
Yeah. So you got all the practice for the pandemic. You were just a few years ahead of your time.
Yeah, honestly.
All right. So chapter 2, you learned about what you were doing was a thing. And then what happens?
During that time, and I might be getting the years a little bit mixed up in here. I'm not sure. The timeline's a little fuzzy when it comes to that. But I kind of consider the next chapter to be when, towards the end, the last couple years of my relationship with her, things got rocky. That's when we had those breaks because I was fresh. I was new to this. I had just discovered that it's even a thing. I had no idea how to do it, really. And so I did meet another girl while I was at college, and we started talking and everything. And I don't mean to throw shade at her when I say this, because she's a great person and I hold nothing against her, but I was still kind of forming what my non-monogamy would look like. And when I told her about the person that I was seeing, she more or less convinced me that it wasn't a good idea.
The new woman that you met.
Yes, the new woman that I met, she more or less convinced me that I shouldn't be seeing my then current partner.
Right, in Argentina.
Because at the time when I met her, I was having kind of a rough patch with my current partner at the time. So things weren't great with the relationship. And then I meet this new woman and things are great with us. And I don't know that it was malicious on her part. I would like to think that it wasn't, but she more or less had convinced me at the time that I should stop seeing my current partner and start seeing her. Mm-hmm. And actually, it's one regret that I do have that I've definitely learned from, but it is a regret that I have that I ended up cutting off my relationship, that long distance relationship, to see this new woman, because that didn't last very long. The new relationship, it was good. I don't hold anything against her, like I said, but it just didn't work out. It was just one of those situations where, well, it didn't, we've all have been there, it just doesn't work out with somebody. So,
yeah. And so at this point, you're then thinking, well, you're learning what non-monogamy is for you. Where does that take you
so
next?
you've broken up with the woman in Argentina, and you've broken up with the woman that you started dating after her, or during, I guess, that first...
The transition.
Transition, yeah, that's a good word. And so how about from there?
From there, at that point, I was completely single again. So, and I really missed the woman in Argentina. I really missed her. So we started talking again, ended up getting back together, and it was good. It was good for a while. We more or less just picked up where we left off. I mean, obviously it was hard. We had to have some conversations, but we more or less picked up with the same dynamic, same kind of situation, same rules, everything like that. And we did that for, I'm not sure how long. I can't remember exactly how long. I think it was 1.5 years or so. And then I met, it was between 1 year and 2 years. And
that's okay.
Yeah.
Approximate, it's fine.
Yeah. And I met another woman at college. And at this point, I was more grounded in my own identity. I knew I was polyamorous. I knew that word. I was confident using that word. I was not necessarily looking to have multiple partners at the same time, but I was open to it. So when I met her, I was still with my, I guess, longtime partner at the time. And this new woman, she gave me the ultimatum. She gave me the big ultimatum. It's her or it's me sort of situation. And again, at that time, I say things went back to normal with the girl in Argentina, but they weren't quite normal. They were still it was kind of right where we left off, where we were kind of rough. So it was good, but it was, we weren't solid, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So when I got that ultimatum from this new woman, I made a mistake again. And I ended up choosing her, which I do hold that against her, or that she put me in that situation, because I could never imagine doing that to somebody personally. But I ended up doing that. And after that, I was with her for 1.5 years or so, all through until I graduated college. And then we broke up, and then I was single again. And that kind of is where I leave that chapter there. Is after college, I had gone out of at this time, it had been a 5-year relationship, more or less, with that long distance one, with some breaks in there and some learning, and a lot of learning, actually, because it was rough. But I did learn a lot about myself and about non-monogamy in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was very much like the hall passes were allowed. Obviously, like you said, the relationships involved more talking, and that it wasn't even the woman in Argentina who was telling you that you couldn't be in relationships with these people. It was the people you were finding were very monogamous themselves, and saying, leave this other partner, come to us. and obviously I don't know if you say worked out or didn't work out, right? Like just because the relationship didn't last until you died, it doesn't mean it failed.
Right.
Classic Dan Savage quote.
I'm just channeling my inner Dan, hoping he'll come on the show one of these days. But I think, so you were, throughout this whole time, I imagine you were learning what worked, what didn't work, what you were wanting out of a relationship. And
I can just to pause real quick and say, like, I can see how, yes, the girls that you met in person, they gave you ultimatums or encouraged you to leave your other partner, but it was also tempting because I can see how it would be tempting because you could see them in person. It's different. Like when you have that physical contact with someone, it's just can be a different level of intimacy than a virtual or long distance relationship.
Yeah, it was. And it really was. It was very tempting. And like I said, I do have those regrets, but at the same time, I kind of don't, because I did learn a lot. And it also made it more complicated because I was learning a lot about myself in general during that time. I mean, it was college. That's the time when, everybody or most people learn a lot about and kind of find themselves. And that was very much me. I was going through a lot of transitions as far as and changes and kind of finding myself, not just with relationships, but, in my religious views, my political views, just my views on life in general, just everything was really kind of in this flux. So I didn't really know what I wanted. I didn't really know how to do things. So it was very good. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so coming out of college, let's say into chapter 3, what does chapter 3 look like with Wilson now knows who he is for the time being?
Yeah, I was like, it's a constant evolution.
So where does chapter 3 take you?
So chapter 3 starts after college. I'm just working, finishing up some internships, things like that. And I was talking to the woman in Argentina again. We weren't really together, but we were on speaking terms again, sort of situation. Sort of I kind of saw it as maybe this will work. It's worth talking to see if it might work. It didn't. Spoilers. But at that time, I wasn't sure if it was going to. So when I started dating after college, actively dating, I went into it wanting an open relationship. So any new relationship when I would meet somebody and we'd go on a date, I'd more or less tell them, maybe not necessarily on the first date, but oftentimes on the first date, like, listen, this is who I am. And this is sort of the type of relationship that I'm looking for. Kind of lay those, not boundaries, but lay that groundwork off right away so that they kind of knew. And I did. I met this girl and she was very much open to it. I came out to her right away. We'd gone on a date and we'd seen each other for a couple days. And I told her that I was polyamorous. I told her about my current situation and that I was still talking to that girl. And I did sort of see the relationship that I had with the girl in Argentina as a relationship. It was just not the same as it had been before, but I kind of still saw it as a relationship. So when I met this new girl, I told her I have this current relationship and I'd like to keep that. And, when we decided that we wanted to have a relationship, we decided that it would be open. Now, she identified as monogamous, but she was okay with things being open. And it was a similar situation as before, except it wasn't don't ask, don't tell. So this was the first non-monogamous relationship I had post learning about non-monogamy. It was an open relationship in the most basic sense of the word. I didn't really have a primary sort of hierarchy at the time between the two of them because they were so different. It was hard to kind of make that distinction. I'm not against hierarchy and I'm not against hierarchy either. But it's different when one person's long distance and the other person is
right in
the same zip code as you, more or less.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what we did, and that was the dynamic of that relationship. Was we could have other romantic partners and other sexual partners, and we talked about it. We communicated. It was I considered it a very good, healthy relationship, and that lasted 2 years, just almost. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and during that time, you said that she identified as monogamous? Did either or both of you, again, road test the theory of your open relationship? I mean, not to discount the relationship with the woman in Argentina.
Yeah. We did actually. We both did. And which was interesting for me is I was used to this. I was kind of used to seeing other people while I was in a relationship and talking to other people and potentially dating and things like that. But considering that she identified as monogamous, she wasn't really ever looking for dates. I wasn't necessarily looking for dates, but I was open to it. It was mostly a sexual thing. But for her, it was purely a sexual thing. She wasn't really at all looking for other romantic partners, but we both did. We both had other sexual partners, and we were open to talking about it. There wasn't really any jealousy issues, which I think surprised her. And it's interesting when I've told people, some of my friends, about this, that by the end, what would be the end of our relationship, she no longer identified as monogamous. She didn't identify as poly, but she just considered herself generally non-monogamous. And she told me that she discovered that she was during that relationship, obviously, because she said she would see other people and she would know that I was seeing other people, and she didn't feel that jealousy either. And we actually did feel some compersion about that as well. So that really helped her. And then me telling her things and kind of teaching her a little bit about non-monogamy, and because it's me. I naturally want her to know about the things that I'm feeling. And then she found that she was feeling similar things, and she didn't know she was able to do that, which was kind of a beautiful thing, really, when I think back on it. And that was a great relationship. It lasted a while, but again, it was one of those things where I couldn't see it working out in the long term. So I had to cut things off with that. I figured it was just time. I mean, not to stress on that part of the relationship, but sure, things ended up just stopping with us. And that kind of puts me where I am now. And I've been single for a little while now. So now I'm just kind of on to my new chapter.
Which is...
What do you envision it to being? Like, are you envisioning moving forward trying to seek out like non-monogamous relationships? Are you just kind of dating around to meet different people, or what kind of thing are you doing?
Right now, I've kind of decided I don't want to mess around with monogamy anymore. I really want to kind of dive headfirst into the non-monogamy and poly scene, quote unquote, and really do that, which I kind of chose a bad time to do that with COVID, but here we are. But that's what I've been doing. I've been going in, I put on all my dating, on all the dating apps and sites and things like that. I put right in my bio, ENM, poly, different things like that. So I'm just straight up with people right from the beginning. And then it kind of keeps, number one, it keeps me from having to have the same conversation over and over again with people. I know when I get a match or I meet somebody that they're at least mostly cool with everything. And it's at least there's not that hurdle, I should say,
right,
to go over. So yeah, I'm just, I don't know that I have a specific vision of like, this is the exact type of dynamic that I'm looking for, but I do really want to explore. I kind of consider myself in a exploratory phase as far as non-monogamous relationships and dating goes, because I've never really, really done it. I've dated monogamous people in that sort of situation. So I'm really exploring.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it's a really exciting place to be because it's why not, right? I mean, COVID makes it harder for sure, but it's still really exciting.
Yeah. Well, and I think that maybe is a good point there in that, like, you're kind of exploring, but what is it that you, like, what were your favorite parts and maybe least favorite parts about the previous sort of ways you've explored it? And like, do you have some ideas of like, well, when I do it the next time, I would do this different, or I would do this the same? Like, what do you, again, knowing that it could change, but what do you kind of see it like right now, your ideal situation being?
I guess I'm not really sure what you mean. I guess, could you repeat that?
Well, like, if you were to design your perfect sort of non-monogamous structure right now, like, would it be you have 3 different girlfriends and they're all, casual, or you'd have one serious, one that's casual, one that's long distance? Like, what would be your preferred strategy for attack, I guess, so to speak, your war plan?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. I guess in the ideal world, if I could just, wave a magic wand and, and make this happen, I do like the idea of having a primary partner. So I think I would have that primary girlfriend and then probably another girlfriend, but then have some sort of casual relationships on the side. Because I kind of sort of have, I don't have that now, but I have some casual regular relationships right now, a couple of them. So to keep situations like that around, some not just play partners, but, good friends that I also play with.
Yeah.
And then, in my ideal, I would have that as well as having a primary and not necessarily secondary, but another partner as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally.
Yeah. Right. No, yeah. I mean, again, it was a
waving the magic wand.
It was a waving the magic wand question. So it's perfect. Yeah. I think it was just kind of trying to understand what, over this time of the last 6-7 years that you've been exploring this, like, what is it that you had been learning about yourself, right? You've obviously learned a lot, and just trying to understand what some of those things were.
You mean as far as just relationships or in general about my life? I mean, I'm obviously not going to tell my whole story about my whole life, but you know what I mean.
No, yeah. No, I think around the relationships, around what you were finding worked and didn't work. And I think you kind of answered that you enjoy the casual partners, but having something a little more serious also works for you, and finding the balance between those.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've learned as far as relationships go is that I'm not doing strict monogamy again. I don't think I could really do that. At the minimum, I think I don't consider myself a very needy person, but I think as far as the relationships go, I would need to have an open relationship, even if it's just where I can have other casual partners, whether, right. like my casual partners that I have now, who are my friends as well as play partners. I would need to at least be able to have that dynamic in a relationship that I have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just as far as everything else goes, as far as with the relationship, obviously, like in any non-monogamous relationship, communication for me is just like, I tell this even to my monogamous friends that talk to me. If they mention anything about their relationship, I say, communicate. You need to communicate. That's incredibly important. So I've really learned over these last few years kind of what I do and don't value in a partner. And communication is very much one of those things. And then kind of I guess it sounds weird to say, but kind of self-worth too. People who really, I would say people who know who they are, know who they want, or what they want, I should say, and who they want. But people who are are very confident necessarily, or they don't necessarily need to be super confident, but need to kind of know who they aren't wishy-washy. I don't like wishy-washy people. So I kind of have really learned the type of person that I tend to make connections with.
Yeah.
People who aren't wishy-washy, people who I can have a conversation with. I've gone on dates before. We've all been on dates with a person that just, you can't talk to them. You go and you try to make conversation and they just give you short answers, and it's like, okay, this isn't going to work, because I need to be able to at least have a conversation about something with you.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot about that, and I'm still learning because, like I said, all those relationships that I had in the past were fairly short or fairly close together too. I didn't have a lot of time in between. I don't know what that says about me psychologically, but we won't go there. But
we don't need to read into that. It's okay.
So I'm really exploring kind of dating in general right now too. So I don't know. I kind of still consider myself definitely in a learning phase, but it's like a new learning phase as compared to what I was in before.
Yeah.
How has the dating gone? And like you said, you're starting to put all of this information out in your app, like the apps, your non-monogamous, and like, what has the response to that been?
It's been fairly good. I haven't had a lot of detractors or anything like that. I could tell you, I just recently, in the last couple weeks here, downloaded a bunch of new ones because I was doing kind of the basics, Tinder, Bumble, some of those, and it was working fine. But I kind of I guess, rash decision of, I was like, I'm just going to download a bunch of them and just see what sticks, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And obviously I can't keep doing this. I'm going to run out of bandwidth, but I want to see what really works out. And I'm kind of still doing that, but it's been pretty good. And as far as like putting it in my bio, I can tell you when I put it in like my Tinder bio, the amount of matches plummeted. the amount plummeted, but the quality was a lot better. So it really became a quality over quantity, which is good in my mind. That's why I put all that information in there. Because before I didn't put it in there almost intentionally because I wanted to have that one-on-one conversation with the person. But number one, I got sick of having the same conversation. And number two, it wasn't really working as well as I thought it was going to. So I figured I'll just put it in, and it really has given me a quality over quantity sort of dynamic there. And it's been pretty good. I haven't really dove into the specifically non-monogamous apps yet. I downloaded them on my phone. I have them right here, but I haven't really set up profiles on any like SLS or any of those yet. I still got to do that, but I've been pretty busy, so I haven't had the time to. But we'll see how that goes when I get on there, because I'm sure that's a whole different world than being on some of the other ones. So
well, that leads to another question. Like, are you interested in like the swinging world at all, or other types of monogamy, or are you looking more for different, like more relationships? I guess and there's a whole lot of definitions in that. But you get the gist of my question.
Yeah, I'm looking for both. I'm definitely looking for a relationship or relationships, but I'm open to anything. I'm very much not familiar with the lifestyle. I'm very much not familiar with that, with swinging at all. I'd really like to learn. I need to look into it because I'm very much open to it. Mm-hmm. I've only ever known about it between couples and people who are already in relationships. So I wouldn't necessarily know how to go into that as a single man. But I'm very much open to it. And I mean, hey, if you guys have pointers, send them my way, because I need to learn all these things.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously never done it myself, but I think it's just more of being authentic, being who you are. And it's the same, like you could lie and deceive people, and you might get a whole bunch more matches, but are they really matches, right? And not that I'm implying you're a deceptive person by any stretch of the imagination, just like...
Or that anyone should do that.
Yeah, no, yeah. But I think if you just like being yourself, right? Like people are either going to like you or they're not. And like the ones who do, great. And the ones who don't, like you saved yourself a lot of energy and time by avoiding that.
And I think the other like really quick recommendation is like just be respectful, like kind of like how you would on a normal any dating app. Like just
how you should be.
How you should be. Yes, how you should be on a dating app. Like respectful, kind, like all of those types of things go straight into like the swinging world as well.
Yeah. And maybe one final tip, and not that our show is all about tips, but remember that if you're talking to a couple, there's two people in that couple, and that it's okay to talk to both of them. Like you don't have to, like, even if you're only interested in the woman sexually, there's also like her partner, and they're going to be there as well in some capacity. And, in a lot of cases, they would want to be at least cordial.
Yeah.
Not always, but
and
often.
Different people have different dynamics, but that's definitely true. You got to remember that there are often multiple people in the situation.
That's our teaser 100 level single male in the lifestyle course.
Yeah. And it leads to another question of mine too. Have you had the chance, or do you want to explore your sexuality at all?
At this point, no, I don't really have any interest in exploring it. Obviously, you never know what's going to happen.
Right?
But
yeah.
I don't foresee anything like that happening. But I would be interested. It's kind of funny you say that, because I would be interested in, not necessarily in having any sort of sexual relationship with another man, but I've never been in a situation where they're sexually, even in the same room with another man. It's only been, when I've ever been with more than one person, it's only been actually only once, and it was with two women, and it was just the three of us there. So I've never experienced that dynamic of having another male in the room, let alone involved. So I'd definitely be interested in seeing what that's like. And I'm very much open to that. But yeah, as far as my sexuality goes, I don't really foresee that changing, obviously, because it's who I am. So
yeah.
And I would say, to that experience, it's fun, and does not impact your sexuality in any way, shape, or form. Just being in a room with other guys having sex with other people. So
yeah,
not that you seem too concerned about it turning you bi or gay.
Looking for you to confirm that.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there for for any listeners who are like, well, if I do that, I'm definitely gay. But it's not.
No.
And so. Not that there would be. I was going to say, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that's not how that works. So
yeah,
sleep well tonight, people.
Yeah, you're not just going to magically change your sexuality.
No, typically not. I guess it could happen.
It could happen.
Could happen, I guess.
It could happen, but typically not.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This has been super fun. Is there? Oh, go ahead, Emma.
Do you have any bloopers that you'd want to share?
I do have one.
I was like, if you listen to the show, that you've heard us ask this question, so I'm hoping you maybe been thinking about it.
Yes, I do have one, and I told the other people involved in this about it, and they're both like, "Yes, you have to tell the story," because it's hilarious.
Awesome.
So both, I actually mentioned these two girls before, and I'm good friends with both of them, and. Now, but this was several months ago. This was right before COVID, actually. And I was talking to them. We had kind of first started talking. We'd been talking for a few weeks and had sex a couple times. I had been with both of them, and things had come up, like having a threesome had come up. Not with the other person, not with each other. There was no connection there. But having a threesome had come up with each of them. So when I came up with the second person, I was like, oh, wait, maybe we can make this happen between the three of us. Because I was talking to both of them, and I brought it up to them both at the same time. I remember I had just gotten out of work, and I had texted both of them, basically having the same conversation. Like, listen, like I have this opportunity, like we have this opportunity to, have this other woman involved. Would you be interested in doing that? Because I know you had mentioned it. And both of them were like, yes, definitely. We'll definitely do that. And both of them at the same time actually said, well, one of them said, well, what's the other person's name? And I just figured she wanted to know so she could look her up on Facebook or something, figure out who she was. So I told her, and she's like, wait a minute. What's her last name? And I told her at that point, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? And I had the same conversation with both of them. And it turns out they were already really good friends. These two women that I was talking to were already really good friends. They had worked together in the same place just recently. And neither of them knew that, I was talking to either, nobody knew about any of the connections that were going on here. So
you were trying to coordinate a threesome with these two women who were best friends, which you didn't know.
Exactly.
You didn't know that piece. Yeah.
I didn't know that they were friends, and they weren't talking to each other about me. obvious. Like, I don't know if that's obvious, but they weren't talking. So it was just this really, like, it was very awkward at the time. It's perfectly fine now because we all just laughed about it. But yeah, I basically tried to set up a threesome with two people who were really good friends on accident.
So did the threesome happen?
It hasn't. No, it never did. It never did. But
well, maybe someday.
Yeah. Hey, maybe someday. We're still all good friends with each other, kind of more or less separately. So maybe it will. I don't know. But that was probably the biggest blooper I've ever had. And it's not huge, obviously, but it was like, at the time I was just like, wait, you gotta be kidding. What are the chances?
Right. Well, because probably they went and talked to each other and be like, we're sleeping with the same person. We didn't know it.
It's funny coming to, like, from me earlier saying I value communication so much. And then I had this happen, like, oh, I was like, this is a pretty big city. Like, how did this happen?
Wow.
But yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
did you have anything else to ask?
I didn't. I wanted to say thank you and to give you the opportunity if there was anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about. And if not, it's quite a bit later there, so we will let you get along with your West Michigan evening.
Not that I can really think of. I just want to thank you guys for doing what you do, because this is awesome. And I've learned a lot from the show already. And it's great to put a human touch on the things that you read about on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, but everything you hear on the internet is
like our show
is legitimate. Yeah. So
yes. Well, thank you so much. I know you reached out to us, just emailed us about a month ago. So we're super excited that you did. And
joined the Patreon, which is awesome. So thank you for that.
And the meet and greet. So full on.
Jumped
right in.
Yeah, all systems go.
Yeah, it's been great. I love the meet and greets. That was really fun the first time. And like I said, it's great to see other real people instead of just seeing, Reddit usernames.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a very different world there. So it's been great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, thank you for the support. Thank you
for the plug.
And thank you for coming on the show, sharing your story again. Like you said, you've learned from everybody else, and inevitably somebody's going to learn something from you from this. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Have a wonderful night.
Yeah.
You too.
And we're back. Thank you so much to Wilson for reaching out and jumping right in and sharing his story. He told us that he only found our show a few months ago. So he listened to a couple episodes and then reached out and wanted to share.
Yeah, and as you heard him talking about, he has actually jumped into a lot of the community stuff that we've got going on. He talked a little bit about the meet and greet, and he didn't share that he is also in the Patreon community. So a huge thank you to him and, again, all the other patrons for that. With that, we talked about it in the intro, but we do a monthly video Q&A with everybody at every level. And then if you jump up to the $5 level, there's also a MeWe chat group. So it's sort of just an ongoing chat community where people share all sorts of things that they're doing, ask questions of each other, just get help from each other, and honestly share lots of pictures of food that they're making and their dogs and their dogs and their hot tubs and everything like that. So it's a great supportive community, and it's, I don't know, again, as we said, we really enjoy it, and it's been great.
We also have a women's group for the $5 and up patrons. This is something that started in April, I believe, and it's been amazing to see the growth and just the connection for all of us. The next discussion call, so we have a monthly discussion call. It'll be this Wednesday, October 14th. And if you miss it, we'll have another one in November, so don't worry. But we also have an ongoing chat group for the women's group as well, so you can join anytime you want and be added to that.
Yeah. And the other thing that we talked about at the beginning was the virtual meet and greet, which these are open to anybody and everybody. They're $10. And what we do is we bring everybody together monthly in a Zoom, basically a large Zoom call. And then we use the breakout room feature. So you get a chance to meet in larger groups, smaller groups, and we give you different questions. And it's just a fun way to get to know people and have conversations.
Yeah, and they've been growing every month too. It's been an awesome turnout.
Yeah, for sure.
Our next one is this coming Friday, October 16th at 10 p.m. Eastern.
There you go.
Yes,
Nailed it.
Nailed the time this time,
Yeah,
since
we
I
nailed it.
apparently wasn't clear enough in the intro.
So we hope to see you at some or all of these events. Again, they're super fun, and we've been loving doing them, so it's an honor to have such a great community around us.
Yeah, and if you happen to miss these meet and greets and all these events coming up because you're listening to this later in October, don't worry. Go check out our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. On the meet and greet tab and on the Patreon tab, you can find the dates for the upcoming events.
And one last quick thank you to Alt Playground for sponsoring the show. And again, remember now you can check them out for less than $4 for a 3-day trial, $3.99. Saving that penny. You never know. Save your pennies. So check them out. Head over to altplayground.net. And again, check it out for a couple of days and get unlimited access.
And with that, we will see you on Wednesday for an interview with Rachel.
Yes, a fantastic interview. As always, we will see you in a couple of days.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.